You're here with Mark Boutwell on Perfect Gardens TV. So today we're going to be getting into just finishing the building out of the infrastructure of the garden. If you've been following the channel, you can see that I got my vegetable garden going this year. We've actually been utilizing square foot gardening.
Make sure to hit the join button on the bottom of every video.
So to really maximize the garden, we actually not just have to do a square foot garden, but try to take things up as vertical as possible while taking advantage of the light, maximizing the light. And as you can see right here, I have a massive tree here, actually two of them. And so every single day the sun comes up, I get really great sunlight throughout the entire day. It comes through, and about midday it starts to block it. And so what I'm doing here is, first, if you can kind of notice, I've separated out a couple large crops. I've make sure to give these guys space while also putting tomatoes all the way up along the backside. So what I'm going to have to do to take advantage of all these tomatoes, I'm going to have to take them and make sure they go vertical. So I'm maximizing that morning to midday sun throughout the entire day, as well as the backside is also taking advantage of that light. Hopefully, of course. Last but not least, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish putting my pipes up, and I will be taking advantage of using my yo-yos, basically, and kind of give you a brief overview of everything. You know, you can see my square foot. If I let this thing go, it's going to start to really overgrow each other. So some of the things I'm going to be constantly doing, obviously, is picking my lettuce. My radishes are ready to be harvested, so I'm going to pull those up, replant in these areas. In addition, I've actually also weeded my entire garden. I believe these look like little guys, but actually they get really big and really actually take out a lot of the nutrients from the soil. So I've actually went through and pulled maybe about 1,500 weeds out already before they got too big. And so what I'm going to be doing, like I said, is I'm going to be putting these poles up and using the yo-yos to keep guiding the tomatoes all the way up. In addition to this, I'm also going to be removing the branches that I don't really want growing, because I really want that main stalk to go up, and I want to create some airflow underneath this plant so that diseases and bugs don't have the ideal environment to grow. Am I worried about bugs? No. Why? Because I'm using my trace minerals, my bacteria, and my organic shield weekly. So I'm actually not really concerned about the bugs, but at the same time, I still don't want to create an environment where bad things or pathogens can take hold. So I'm just going to give you, I have some dill here, some more lettuce, we have some kale, I got a couple more tomato plants, so I'm actually going to be taking these tomato plants vertical as well. I'm going to have to swap them out right there from that tomato to squash. From that tomato to the lettuce, and I got some more lettuce going right here. And some corn in the center. A couple more squash plants as well. And then, you know, it's so funny. I had this completely crappy tomato plant right here. I was right about to throw it away, and then I was like, you know what? I might as well just go ahead and throw it in the bucket and see what happens. And believe it or not, I'm actually going to be taking our compost from our bokashi. That if you haven't checked out that video, make sure to check it out, because in that video we teach you how to make compost tea. We teach you about composting your food that you're eating every day and using the bokashi, which is actually the EM1, and making and really just supercharging your compost. So I'm gonna dig this out and actually be putting my compost in here. So this soil is actually going to get much more alive. And I'm going to just see what this plant does compared to the rest in a different spot. So the yo-yos I've been telling you about. So these yo-yos are phenomenal. I've actually had these puppies for about 3 years now, 3 or 4 years, and they just work so amazing. All it does right here is it just goes right here. These are the cheapest things you could possibly ever buy, but they make your garden phenomenal. And then all you do is just lock it into place when there's tension, and if there was a tomato plant right here, it would just hold it right there. I love these things, and I'll show you how I'm going to use them later. Right now, I'm just going to be cutting some of my pipes and putting them into place, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm completed. Okay, so now that I got my poles up, the next step is going to be I'm going to go ahead and hang my yo-yos, and then after that, I'm going to go ahead and start to clean the underbrush of all my tomato plants. Okay, so the next step, as you can see, I got my yo-yos up, Next step is to go ahead and clean out the tomato plants. Like I said, I actually want to be able to see what's happening underneath the plants. And so all I'm doing is just clearing a little bit of the stalk, and I'm really just thinking about how this plant is going to look in a few months from now. Like all I'm doing is just asking myself some questions and using Perfect Gardens TV as a channel to video document what's happening in my garden so that I can come back the following year and adjust appropriately. So I know how to grow really good canna, but vegetables has always been my father's thing. So it's not really something that has been of interest to me. And just really in the last 5 to 6 years, it's become exponentially more interesting to me. And me wanting to be able to use my skills and just continue to keep advancing them. I'm not saying I peaked out on the canna, just because I still do learn enormous amounts of things from the plant. Although there's so much I don't know about my vegetables, and as I get older and I have kids, providing healthy food to my children and to my family actually ends up becoming more important to me than the canna, because as I get older, I begin to realize that all plants are medicine. And if I just grow the canna, then it's just medicine for myself. Although if I grow food, it ends up being medicine for my entire family. So what's the saying? I'm not sure. I'm going to butcher it right now. If anyone, please go ahead and type it in down below. But when you're a boy, you get to play and have fun. But as you grow up, you kind of have to put the boyish things aside. And that's kind of what I'm doing with the canna right now. Is I'm growing up. I know I'm 36 years old, right? Go to the military, college, a couple companies. Yet I still feel like I'm not growing up. Like I still think I'm 7 or 8 years old in my mind. And it's just now, 36 years old, I'm realizing, well, I don't want to say just now. I would just say, though, in the last 6 years, though, growing food has just been a higher priority. Anyways, you know us on this Perfect Gardens TV. We are a gardening retail store. So for the last 10 years, I've been posting about canna. And for the next 10 years, I'll be posting about a lot more plants than just the canna plant. Hope you stay tuned. This is why I love these things. You just bring them down like this. And if you wanted to lock them into place, there's a little thing on the other side right here. You just press. Sorry for the not being perfect, but you just press this side, and it locks it right there. And you can actually press the button right here, and it releases it. And as you can see right here, they're locked in place. So as you can see right here, all I'm doing is just using these strings to just make sure that the tomato plants keep going up. It already looks just so much better underneath the bush. Able to get actually the remainder of those weeds. It's these little succulents I talked to you guys about. They just are such a pain in the butt. They'll take over the whole yard space. And this is where a mulch layer would come in. It was just suggested to me a few minutes ago, actually. And putting some paper on the bottom, putting some wood chips or even grass clippings to keep those down. Definitely that will be something into the future. But I'm going to finish this up. Okay, one more additional thing with these yo-yos is you definitely have to kind of do a little twist around the stem. You just definitely don't want to hook them, because they will go back up on you, and if you mess with them too much, it could break the plant. So obviously you got to be sensitive to what you're doing on a daily basis. So one more additional couple comments is I haven't watered this morning. And do you see how moist the soil is? That's because over the evening, a wicking experience happened because of the Pittmoss. And that's really what I love about that Pittmoss, is that it's drawing the nutrients and the available nutrients in the water from the bottom up. And it's basically doing a bottom water up process every single day. And then in the morning, or around 11 in the afternoon, depending upon the temperature and how dry it is in the morning, if I see it start to dry off in the morning, if I start to see it dry off around 11 o'clock, I just do a very light water and I'm good to go. Okay, please remember to like, share, subscribe. All the discount codes are down below on all the different products that we highly recommend, which are Pittmoss, Drops Balance, Organic Shield, We're testing out the Roots Organic nutrients. I absolutely love their fabric pots and the liners. I mean, you can just see the difference too. The algae buildup, very little compared to the ones that don't. And the way how I kind of look at that is that when I see the algae buildup, I think about it as my nutrients being wasted. So when these liners just do an impeccable job at what they do. All right, as you can see, the yo-yos are up. My whole infrastructure is up in the garden. I have my shade cloth just in case it gets really hot, and I'm ready to start going. You know, I feel like my garden looked like a total shit show the last couple weeks. The last few videos I've released to you guys, and I think I'm actually doing a better job for you guys at this point because it's finally set up, and we'll see how the garden goes. Ooh, look at this moth right there. Ooh, that guy is going to die. He would have put a cocoon on my plants, and I don't want that. And you know what? I just sprayed this morning, but I think I'm going to do another spray this evening. Hit them hard, especially because I cleaned up the underbrush. Have a great grow, everyone.
Man, watering, in my opinion, is one of the most complicated processes involved in growing this plant. One of the biggest mistakes I see from new folks is either overwatering or underwatering. And they both have very similar signs. You know, we know that underwatering and overwatering can often lead to droopy leaves.